Chosen one, what if I told you that in exactly 72 hours, God is going to close a door that has been standing open for your entire life? What if I told you that the 15th of August, 16th and 17th aren't just dates on your calendar, they're the final countdown to the greatest spiritual opportunity you will ever receive? And what if I told you that missing these 3 days could cost you everything heaven has been preparing to pour into your hands? Listen to me carefully. Chosen one, there are moments in history when heaven leans forward. When the clock of eternity strikes a divine hour so profound that angels themselves hold their breath. The 15th of August, 16 and 17 are not ordinary days. They are the fork in the road of your destiny. They are your burning bush moment. And Moses only got one. Right now, as you're watching this, something is stirring in your spirit. You feel it, don't you? That unexplainable pull, that divine urgency rising in your chest. That's not coincidence, that's confirmation. If you feel your spirit stirring already, I want you to type "I hear you, Lord" in the comments right now as your prophetic agreement with heaven. Here's what they're not telling you. God has been setting up a divine appointment with your destiny, and it has an expiration date. These 3 days are your spiritual launch sequence 10, 9, 8, and if you miss the ignition, you don't just delay your breakthrough, you drift off course for years. The enemy knows what's coming. He's been working overtime to distract you, to make you doubt, to convince you that your season of waiting will never end. But chosen one, your waiting season is about to be violently interrupted by God's favor. There is one thing, just one thing you must do in this sacred window. One act of spiritual obedience that will unlock what heaven has been storing up for you. Ignore these days, and you risk locking yourself out of the very blessing you've been praying for. But step into alignment during this prophetic window and watch God move mountains that have been blocking your path for years. Before I share this life-altering revelation with you, I want to pause and thank every single one of you who has supported this message through super thanks. Your generosity means more than you know. You're not just donating, you're helping spread light to others who feel alone in their calling. Whether you give or not, I'm deeply grateful for your presence here, your support, your time, your attention. It all matters. And if this message resonates with your soul, go ahead and sow that seed of faith. Chosen one, fasten your spiritual seatbelt. What I'm about to reveal will shake you to your core and change everything you thought you knew about God's timing in your life. These aren't just 3 days, they're 3 doors, and one of them leads to your promised land. Are you ready to discover which door is yours? How many times have you heard someone say, "I wish I had one more chance"? How many people do you know who missed their moment and spent the rest of their lives wondering, what if? But what if I told you that God doesn't give endless chances, He gives appointed times, and when those times pass, they're gone forever? Listen to me, chosen one. I need you to understand something that could save your spiritual life. These 3 days, the 15th of August, 16th and 17th, are not suggestions from heaven. They are divine mandates with eternal consequences. In Esther 4:14, Mordecai asked a question that echoes through eternity. Who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? Notice he didn't say for such a season or for such a year. He said for such a time as this, a specific, non-negotiable moment when destiny intersects with decision. You see, God's timing operates like the subway system here in New York City. Miss your train by 30 seconds, and you don't just lose a few minutes, you miss your entire destination. The next train might come, but it's going somewhere completely different. That's exactly what's happening in your spiritual life right now. These aren't just 3 random days in August. They are your final alignment checkpoint before 2026, and I promise you, before this message ends, you'll understand why 2026 is the year that will either crown your faithfulness or expose your hesitation. Let me paint you a picture that will shake you to your core. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, there are spiritual forces moving in the heavenly realm. Angels are being positioned. Doors that have been sealed for decades are creaking open, and God is looking down at His chosen ones, at you, asking one simple question. Will they recognize their moment when it comes? Jeremiah 1-5 declares, "Before I formed you in the womb I knew you, before you were born I set you apart." Did you catch that? Before your first breath, God had already marked these exact days on His calendar with your name written beside them. This isn't coincidence, this is divine appointment. But here's what's breaking my heart. Most of God's chosen ones will sleep through their greatest opportunity. They'll treat the 15th of August like any other Thursday. They'll scroll through social media on the 16th instead of seeking His face. They'll end the 17th having never realized that heaven was holding its breath, waiting for their response. You want to know what terrifies me more than anything? It's not that you might fail, it's that you might succeed at everything except recognizing your moment. It's that you might pray for breakthrough, while breakthrough is standing at your door, knocking softly, waiting for you to answer. I've been in ministry for 5 decades. I've watched thousands of believers miss their divine moments because they were waiting for something that felt more dramatic, more obvious, more convenient. They wanted God to send them a burning bush when He was speaking through a gentle whisper. They wanted thunder when He was offering stillness. Right here, right now, I need you to do something that could change your life forever. Share this message with at least one person you love, because if they miss this window, you'll spend the rest of your life wishing you had warned them. Don't let the people you care about sleepwalk through their destiny. You feel that stirring in your spirit right now, don't you? That's not excitement, that's recognition. Your spirit knows what your mind is still trying to process. These 3 days aren't coming to test you, they're coming to position you. But positioning requires participation. Here's the reality that most preachers won't tell you. God's windows of opportunity have expiration dates. When Noah was building the ark, do you think God kept that window open indefinitely? When the Israelites stood at the Jordan River, do you think they could have crossed next week, next month, next year? No, there was a specific moment when the waters parted, and if they had hesitated, they would have wandered in the wilderness until they died. The same principle applies to your life right now. God has been preparing something magnificent for you, but it requires your alignment during this precise window. Miss it, and you don't just delay your blessing, you forfeit your positioning for what's coming in 2026. I can see some of you right now, sitting there thinking, but I don't feel ready. I don't feel worthy. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. Let me tell you something that will either terrify you or liberate you. God doesn't wait for you to feel ready. He waits for you to be obedient. Moses didn't feel ready when God called him from the burning bush. Esther didn't feel ready when she was asked to risk her life for her people. David didn't feel ready when he faced Goliath, but they all had one thing in common. They recognized their moment and stepped into it afraid. Your moment is knocking. The 15th of August, 16th and 17th aren't just dates, they're doors. And doors don't stay open forever. The question that will determine your next decade isn't whether you're qualified. It's whether you're willing to step through the door when it opens, even if you can't see what's on the other side. But before I reveal exactly what you must do during these 3 critical days, I need to show you what happens to those who miss their divine moment and why the consequences stretch far beyond what you could ever imagine. Chosen one. What I'm about to show you will shake the very foundation of how you understand God's timing. You see, heaven doesn't operate on our schedule. It operates on divine patterns, sacred rhythms that have echoed through Scripture for thousands of years. And the 15th of August, 16th and 17th. They're not random dates. They're the culmination of a biblical blueprint that God has been weaving throughout history. Let me take you back to a dungeon in Egypt. Joseph, a man who had been forgotten, abandoned, left to rot in prison for crimes he never committed. For years, he interpreted dreams for fellow prisoners, watched them get released while he remained chained. Can you imagine the despair? The nights when he must have questioned if God had forgotten his name. But then came one morning, one single morning when Pharaoh had a dream that shook the kingdom. And in that moment, that precise divine moment, Joseph was pulled from the pit to the palace in less than 24 hours. Here's what will break your heart. If Joseph had given up just one day earlier, if he had allowed bitterness to consume his gift, if he had stopped believing in God's promise, Egypt would have starved, Israel would have perished, the lineage of Christ would have been severed. One man's obedience in a 3-day window changed the course of human history. But that's not the only time God moved this way. Take Noah, a man who built an ark for decades, while his neighbors mocked him as a madman. For years, he hammered every nail, sealed every board, gathered every animal. But when God said, "Enter the ark," Genesis tells us that the Lord shut the door behind them. Not Noah, the Lord himself. And when that door closed, it stayed closed. 7 days later, the floods came. 7 days. Those who missed the window didn't get a second chance. You want to know something that will chill you to the bone? Those people outside the ark had watched Noah build for years. They knew about the warning. They had time to prepare. But they thought they had more time. They thought the door would stay open forever. They were wrong. And what about Joshua at Jericho? God didn't tell him to march around the walls for months or years. It was 7 days. Exactly 7 days. 6 days of preparation, 1 day of breakthrough. Can you picture the Israelites on day 6, tired, frustrated, wondering if they were walking in circles for nothing? The walls looked the same. Their circumstances hadn't changed. But on day 7, the appointed day, the prophetic moment, those massive walls didn't just crack, they collapsed completely. Here's the pattern that will change everything for you. 3 days. God consistently uses 3-day windows for separation, preparation, and activation. Jesus was in the tomb for 3 days before resurrection. The Israelites prepared for 3 days before receiving the 10 Commandments at Mount Sinai. Esther fasted for 3 days before approaching the king to save her people. Jonah was in the belly of the whale for 3 days before his mission began. This isn't coincidence, dear one. This is divine mathematics. God moves in patterns, and these patterns reveal his heart. He gives us windows, sacred moments when heaven and earth align, when the impossible becomes inevitable. But here's what will terrify you. These windows close. Think of it like this. You're standing on the platform at Grand Central Station in New York City. The train to your destiny pulls up. The doors slide open. But they won't stay open forever. You hear the conductor's voice echoing through the station. All aboard. Last call. You can see your future through those open doors. You can feel the rumble of the engine ready to carry you to everything you've been praying for. But if you hesitate, if you doubt, if you think another train will come, those doors will close. And the next train? It might not be heading to the same destination. Right now, as I speak these words, I can feel the weight of this moment pressing down on my spirit. The 15th of August, 16th and 17th aren't just 3 days on your calendar. They're your platform moment, your ark door, your Jericho march, your 3 days in the tomb before resurrection. The biblical pattern is clear. God prepares you in the wilderness, but he promotes you in a window. He refines you in the process, but he reveals you in a moment. Every person in Scripture who experienced breakthrough, Abraham leaving Ur, Moses at the burning bush, David being anointed king, Mary receiving the Annunciation, they all had their window moment, their divine appointment with destiny. But here's what breaks my heart. How many of God's chosen ones miss their window because they're not watching? How many are so focused on their pain that they miss their portal? How many are so consumed with their past that they sleep through their future? The enemy has been working overtime to distract you during this season. He's been whispering lies about your worth, your calling, your timing. He's been showing you every reason why you're not ready, why you don't deserve it, why it's too good to be true. But what if he's fighting so hard because he knows exactly what God is about to release in your life? The pattern is playing out again, chosen one. The countdown has begun, the door is opening. But this time you know the pattern. This time you understand the rhythm. This time you won't be caught sleeping when heaven calls your name. But there's still one crucial element of this pattern that most people miss entirely, the element that determines whether you walk through the door or watch it close forever. Let me tell you something about battles, chosen one. The fiercest wars aren't fought on distant battlefields. They're fought in the quiet corners of your heart at 3 a.m. when doubt whispers your name. And right now, as the 15th of August approaches like a freight train through the tunnels of time, the enemy has declared all-out war on your destiny. You feel it, don't you? That gnawing loneliness that creeps in when everyone else seems to be moving forward while you're stuck in spiritual quicksand. That paralyzing fear that maybe, just maybe, you've already missed God's will for your life. That crushing weight of regret over the opportunities you let slip through your fingers because you hesitated when heaven was shouting, "Now!" I know this battle intimately because I've lived it. Let me take you back to a cold February morning in 1987, right here in Manhattan. I was rushing down 42nd Street, briefcase in hand, when I got a call about a meeting that could change everything, a publishing deal that would put my ministry in front of millions. But I was running late, stuck in traffic, watching the minutes tick by like heartbeats of a dying dream. I arrived 7 minutes too late. 7 minutes. The elevator doors had already closed on my destiny, and I watched that opportunity go to someone else who showed up on time. 7 minutes cost me 7 years of breakthrough. That's exactly what the enemy is counting on with these 3 days. He knows the 15th of August, 16th, and 17th are spiritually loaded like nuclear warheads of divine favor. So he's pulling out every weapon in his arsenal to make you miss your moment. Here's his playbook. First, he'll flood you with distractions. Suddenly, everyone needs you. Your phone will buzz with urgent matters that somehow all pile up during these exact 72 hours. Your mind will be pulled in 17 different directions because the enemy knows a scattered mind can't hear a clear call from heaven. Then comes the resurrection of old wounds. Past failures will rise from their graves to haunt you. Remember when you tried before and failed? They'll whisper. Remember when you stepped out in faith and got humiliated? These aren't random thoughts, they're strategic strikes designed to paralyze your faith right when you need it most. But here's the most dangerous trap, the false peace offering. Something will appear that looks like a blessing but feels too easy, too convenient, too perfectly timed. Not all that glitters is gold, beloved. Some bait is covered in honey to hide the hook. The enemy will offer you a counterfeit breakthrough to keep you from the real one. If you've ever lost something because you hesitated, drop A in the comments, declare you're not hesitating this time. Listen to what Jesus said in Luke 14:31. What king, going to make war against another king, does not sit down first and consider whether he is able? The enemy has considered you, chosen one. He's studied your patterns, your weaknesses, your breaking points. He knows that if he can just get you to stumble during these 3 days, he can steal years from your timeline. But here's what he doesn't know. God has been preparing you for this exact battle. Every trial you've endured, every midnight prayer you've whispered, every tear you've shed in secret, it was all boot camp for this moment. You're not the same person who hesitated before. You're not the same soul who let fear make decisions for your destiny. The battle is fierce because the blessing is massive. The opposition is intense because your breakthrough is imminent. When Pharaoh's army pursued the Israelites to the Red Sea, it wasn't random timing, it was strategic. The enemy always attacks hardest right before your liberation. You see, the devil isn't afraid of your prayers. He's not threatened by your church attendance or your Bible knowledge. What terrifies him is the thought of you finally stepping into the fullness of who God created you to be. That's why these 3 days have him in a panic. Right now, as I speak these words, there's a war being fought over your future. Angels are positioning themselves for battle, while demons are strategizing your defeat. The question isn't whether the battle will come, it's already here. The question is whether you'll recognize it, suit up, and fight for what God has promised you. Some of you are feeling that spiritual pressure building right now. Your chest feels tight, your spirit feels restless. That's not anxiety, that's the atmosphere of heaven shifting to accommodate your breakthrough. When God is about to move, the spiritual realm gets turbulent. It's like the moments before a thunderstorm, when the air itself becomes electric with possibility. But I need to warn you about something that breaks my heart every time I see it. Spiritual procrastination disguised as wisdom. I need to pray about it more, you'll say. I need another confirmation. Listen, chosen one, sometimes the confirmation is the stirring in your spirit right now. Sometimes the sign you're waiting for is the urgency you're feeling this very moment. The enemy loves to hijack your desire for wisdom and turn it into a weapon of delay. He whispers, "Be careful, be cautious, wait for a clearer sign," while heaven is screaming, "The time is now." Here's the truth that will set you free. God doesn't give you revelation to impress you. He gives it to you to activate you. And right now, He's revealing that the 15th of August, 16th, and 17th aren't just dates, they're coordinates to your destiny. The battle is real, the enemy is strategic, but your God is sovereign, and He's already written your victory into the stars. The only question remaining is this: will you show up to claim it, or will you let another divine appointment slip through your fingers while you're busy fighting battles that were already won at Calvary? Because, chosen one, what happens in the next 3 days doesn't just affect August, it determines the trajectory of your entire future. Chosen one, what I'm about to reveal will shatter everything you thought you knew about God's timing. These 3 days aren't random, they're not symbolic. They are a divine algorithm designed by heaven itself to separate those who are truly ready from those who are still playing spiritual games. The 15th of August is your discernment test, and most of you are going to fail it. Here's why. On this day, God is going to present you with something that looks like exactly what you've been praying for. It will arrive perfectly packaged, beautifully timed, and it will feel like the answer to every tear you've cried. But it's not. It's a spiritual decoy. It's heaven's way of asking you one final question. Do you want what I have for you? Or do you want what you think you need? Remember when God told Abraham to sacrifice Isaac, the very son he had promised? Abraham didn't hesitate. He didn't negotiate. He didn't ask for a second opinion. He simply obeyed, even when it made no earthly sense. Genesis 22:12 records God's response. Now I know that you fear God, because you have not withheld from me your son, your only son. This is your Isaac moment. On the 15th of August, you will be asked to lay down something precious, something that feels essential to your happiness. And your response will determine whether you receive the blessing or watch it pass to someone else who was willing to trust God's strange ways. The enemy knows this day is coming. He's been preparing counterfeits for months, polishing lies until they shine like truth. He will offer you comfort when God is calling you to courage. He will whisper, settle, when heaven is shouting, soar. The question is, will you have the spiritual backbone to say no to good, so you can receive God's best? The 16th of August will break you in the most beautiful way possible. This is your compression day, your wilderness moment, your valley of the shadow of death. You're going to feel spiritually empty, emotionally numb, like every prayer you've ever prayed has evaporated into thin air. Your phone won't ring with good news. Your breakthrough won't manifest. Even your faith might feel like it's running on fumes. But listen to me carefully. This emptiness is not abandonment, it's preparation. Think about Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. The night before his crucifixion, Even the Son of God cried out in anguish, "My Father, if it is possible, may this cup be taken from me. Yet not as I will, but as you will." Matthew 26-39. The silence he felt that night wasn't God's absence, it was God's trust. Heaven was saying, "You're strong enough to carry this alone for just a little while." The 16th of August silence is God's vote of confidence in your spiritual maturity. He's not testing whether you can feel him, he's testing whether you can trust him when you can't feel him. Most believers crumble during compression days. They start making desperate phone calls, seeking validation from people who can't possibly understand their divine assignment. They mistake spiritual pruning for spiritual punishment. But you're different, aren't you? You're going to sit in that divine silence and let it teach you something your prayers never could. That your faith doesn't depend on feelings, circumstances, or external confirmation. Your faith stands on the immovable foundation of God's character. The 17th of August is when heaven opens the floodgates. This is Activation Day, Sealing Day. The day when everything you've endured, everything you've sacrificed, everything you've trusted God for in the darkness finally breaks through into the light. But here's the catch. You have to move when he says move, not when you feel ready. When Joshua stood before the walls of Jericho, God didn't give him a conventional battle plan. He told him to march around the city for 7 days and then shout. Can you imagine how ridiculous that must have sounded to a military commander? But Joshua 6:20 tells us, when the trumpet sounded, the army shouted, and at the sound of the trumpet, when the men gave a loud shout, the wall collapsed. The 17th of August will require the same kind of radical obedience. God is going to ask you to do something that makes no sense to your natural mind. He might tell you to have a conversation you've been avoiding. He might prompt you to make a move you've been postponing. He might whisper instructions that seem too small to matter or too big to be possible. And this is where most chosen ones lose their breakthrough. They overthink it. They wait for more confirmation. They want God to explain himself before they obey. But obedience delayed is obedience denied. If you pass the test on the 15th, survive the stillness of the 16th, and obey immediately on the 17th, you set in motion blessings that will echo into 2026 and beyond. I'm talking about generational shifts, bloodline breakthroughs, doors opening that your grandchildren will still be walking through. But if you fail any one of these 3 days, you don't just miss a blessing, you miss your appointed time. And appointed times in the kingdom of God don't come around every year. Sometimes they come once in a lifetime. Right now, as I'm speaking these words, some of you feel your spirit leaping inside your chest. That's not excitement, that's recognition. Your soul knows I'm telling you the truth. These aren't just 3 days circled on a calendar. They're 3 doorways into your destiny. The question that will haunt you forever is this: when heaven opens those doors, will you be ready to walk through them? Chosen one. Let me tell you about Sarah. She was 67 years old, living in a small apartment in Queens, when God spoke to her spirit about starting a ministry for widows in her neighborhood. But she hesitated. She said, "Lord, I'm too old. Maybe next year when I feel more ready." That next year never came. Sarah passed away 8 months later, and with her died a calling that could have touched hundreds of lives. The widows in her building still sit alone, still cry themselves to sleep, still wonder if anyone cares. Because Sarah ignored her divine moment. This is what happens when we treat God's timing like a suggestion instead of a summons. You see, the enemy's greatest weapon isn't temptation, it's delay. He whispers, "You have time. God will understand if you wait. This opportunity will come around again." But beloved, that's the lie that has destroyed more destinies than any other deception in human history. When God sets a divine appointment, he doesn't send backup plans. When Moses stood before the burning bush, that fire didn't stay lit for weeks waiting for his convenience. When Mary received the angelic visitation, she didn't get a rain check. When Jesus called the disciples, he said, "Follow me now," not when they finished their fishing season. The Bible is crystal clear about this. Hebrews 3:15 warns us, "Today, if you hear his voice, do not harden your hearts, not tomorrow, not next week, today." Because spiritual opportunities have expiration dates that are written in heaven's calendar, not ours. Let me paint you a picture of what happens when you miss your divine window. Remember the children of Israel at Kadesh Barnea. They stood at the very edge of their promised land. God said, "Go in and possess it." But they hesitated. They sent spies. They debated. They delayed. And what should have been an 11-day journey became a 40-year wilderness sentence. An entire generation died in circles because they ignored their moment. Dear friend, are you circling in your own wilderness right now because you missed a divine nudge years ago? Are you still waiting for a breakthrough that was actually offered to you in a previous season, but you thought you weren't ready? Here's what the enemy doesn't want you to understand. Every time God speaks to your spirit and you don't respond, the muscle of spiritual sensitivity grows weaker. Your ability to hear his voice diminishes. Your capacity to recognize divine moments becomes clouded. This is why Jesus said in Matthew 13:12, "Whoever has will be given more, and they will have an abundance. Whoever does not have, even what they have will be taken from them." I've counseled countless people who are stuck in spiritual drought, wondering why heaven feels silent. And when we trace their story back, we always find the same pattern: a series of ignored promptings, dismissed nudges, delayed obedience. Each "not now, Lord" built a thicker wall between them and their destiny. Think about it this way. If you had a train ticket to your dream destination, but you decided to grab coffee instead of boarding, that train doesn't wait. It leaves the station, and when you finally run to the platform, you're not just late, you're left behind, watching your future disappear down the tracks. This is exactly what happens spiritually when we ignore divine timing. God's promises don't expire, but the pathways to receive them do. The people he was going to use as connectors move on. The doors he was going to open get locked. The resources he was going to release get redirected to someone who was ready to receive them. I want you to think about your life right now. How many times have you felt that stirring in your spirit, that gentle nudge to step out in faith, but you convinced yourself it wasn't the right time? How many divine appointments have you rescheduled? How many burning bush moments have you walked past because you were too busy, too scared, or too comfortable in your current situation? The prophet Jeremiah cried out in Lamentations 3:26, "It is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord." But notice he said wait quietly, not wait passively. There's a difference between patient preparation and procrastination. There's a difference between God's timing and your excuses. Right now, as I speak these words, some of you are feeling that familiar tug in your spirit. You know what I'm talking about. That thing God has been whispering to you for months, maybe years. That step of faith he's been calling you to take. That conversation you need to have. That ministry you need to start. That relationship you need to end. That gift you need to unwrap. But you keep saying, maybe when I retire. Maybe when I have more money. Maybe when I feel more confident. Maybe. But chosen one, maybe is the cemetery where God's dreams for your life go to die. The 15th of August, 16th and 17th are not rehearsal days. They are performance days. This is not a spiritual fire drill. This is the real deal. And what you do in these 72 hours will echo through the corridors of your destiny for years to come. The question that should be burning in your heart right now is this: what is God asking me to do that I've been avoiding? What divine instruction have I been treating like a suggestion? Because, beloved, your tomorrow is being written by your obedience today. And if you miss this window, you might find yourself asking the same question Sarah's neighbors are still asking. What if she had just said yes when God first called? Don't let that question haunt your legacy. Don't let hesitation steal your harvest. So what exactly is God calling you to do in these 3 sacred days that could change everything? Chosen one, we've reached the moment where hearing becomes doing, where revelation transforms into activation, where your faith stops being a feeling and becomes a force that moves mountains. The countdown has begun, and heaven is not asking for your permission, it's demanding your participation. Listen to me very carefully. In exactly 72 hours, God is going to look down from his throne and ask one question about you. Did they show up? Did they answer when I called? Your response in the next 3 days will echo through eternity, not just for months, not just for years, for decades. Right now, I need you to stand up. If you're sitting, stand up. If you're lying down, sit up. I don't care where you are, your kitchen, your living room, your car. This is not a passive moment. This is your commissioning ceremony, and you will not receive it sitting down. Look me in the eye through this screen and declare with me, I will not miss my window. I will answer the call. Say it again, louder. I will not miss my window. I will answer the call. Do you feel that fire rising in your chest? That's not adrenaline. That's the Holy Spirit bearing witness with your spirit that you are a child of God, and children of God don't cower when their Father calls. Romans 8:16 declares it, the Spirit himself bears witness with our spirit that we are children of God. But here's what's going to separate you from the masses who will watch this message and do nothing. Here's what's going to distinguish you from those who nod their heads and then scroll to the next video. You're going to take prophetic action. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now. I'm going to give you 3 specific acts of spiritual warfare that will unlock heaven's floodgates over these 3 days. First, for the next 72 hours, you're going to fast from complaining. Every time you want to complain about your circumstances, your delays, your disappointments, you're going to stop mid-sentence and declare instead, God is working all things together for my good. Romans 8:28 promises it, and you're going to live it. Second, you're going to forgive someone who doesn't deserve it. There's a name that just popped into your mind, don't ignore it. That person who hurt you, who betrayed you, who walked away when you needed them most. You're going to release them, not because they earned it, but because your breakthrough is trapped behind your bitterness. Jesus said in Mark 11:25, and whenever you stand praying, forgive if you have anything against anyone, so that your Father also who is in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. Third, you're going to share this message with 3 people in your circle who need to hear it. Not because I'm asking you to promote a video, but because God is asking you to be a messenger. When Philip found Nathanael, he didn't keep the good news to himself. He said, come and see. John 1:46. Your obedience becomes someone else's breakthrough. But I need to tell you something that's going to shake you to your core. Not everyone watching this right now is going to make it through this window. Not everyone is going to answer the call. Some of you are going to let fear convince you that you're not ready. Some of you are going to let doubt whisper that it's too good to be true. Some of you are going to let the enemy talk you out of your miracle at the last minute. Here's the brutal truth. In 5 years, there will be 2 groups of people. Those who stepped into their calling during the 15th of August, 16th and 17th, and those who wished they had. Those who said yes when heaven called their name, and those who made excuses. Those who grabbed hold of God's hand when he reached down, and those who were too afraid to let go of their familiar pain. Which group are you going to be in? Because I promise you this, the opportunity coming in these 3 days will not come again. This is not a seasonal blessing. This is not something that happens every year. This is a once-in-a-lifetime divine appointment, and God is not going to keep rescheduling it because you're not ready. Esther had one chance to save her people. One moment when the king extended his golden scepter. One opportunity to risk everything for her destiny. If she had hesitated, if she had said, maybe tomorrow, an entire nation would have perished. Esther, 4:14 rings through eternity. And who knows whether you have not come to the kingdom for such a time as this. This is your such a time as this moment, chosen one. Heaven is watching for your yes, and your yes now will be remembered for decades in eternity. Angels are leaning over the balconies of heaven, waiting to see if you'll step into the fire or step back into your comfort zone. But here's what I know about you. You didn't stumble across this message by accident. You weren't randomly scrolling when this video appeared on your screen. God orchestrated this divine appointment because He knows something about you that you're just beginning to remember. You're not just chosen, you're ready. You're not just called, you're equipped. You're not just invited, you're expected. So the question that will determine your destiny isn't whether God is ready to move. The question is whether you're ready to move with Him. The clock is ticking, chosen one. The 15th of August, 16th and 17th are rushing toward you like a freight train, and you have one choice to make. Are you going to stand on the tracks and get run over by your own breakthrough, or are you going to jump on board and ride it into your promised land? Heaven is holding its breath, waiting for your answer. Chosen one, here's what nobody warns you about. The moment you step through that divine gate during the 15th of August, 16th and 17th, everything changes, not just the blessing itself, but the spiritual atmosphere around you. And most believers are completely unprepared for what comes next. Picture this, the city after the victory parade. Confetti still falling from yesterday's celebration, flags still waving in the wind, but look closer, storm clouds are gathering on the horizon. The enemy didn't retreat because you won. He regrouped because you became dangerous. You see, dear warrior, there's something they don't teach you in Sunday school. The biggest spiritual attacks don't come before your breakthrough, they come after it. When David slayed Goliath, the entire nation of Israel celebrated. King Saul praised him. The people sang his name in the streets. But what happened next? Saul's jealousy ignited. The very man who should have been David's greatest supporter became his greatest threat. Why? Because victory draws both favor and envy. Your breakthrough doesn't just change your life, it exposes everyone around you who was secretly hoping you'd stay small. Let me ask you something that might shake you to your core. Are you prepared for the isolation that comes with elevation? Because chosen one, when God lifts you to new heights, some people you love are going to reveal they preferred you broken. Here's the brutal truth that most pastors won't tell you from the pulpit. Many believers lose their blessings not because they failed the test to receive them, but because they weren't prepared for the weight of carrying them. They got the promotion but couldn't handle the politics. They found love but couldn't navigate the envy of friends. They received the financial breakthrough but lost their peace trying to manage everyone's expectations. The enemy has a post-victory playbook, and it's devastatingly effective. He doesn't fight you for the blessing anymore, he fights you through the blessing. He turns your gift into your burden, your miracle into your misery, your answered prayer into your greatest stress. There are 3 post-victory traps that destroy more chosen ones than the devil ever could during their wilderness season. The first trap is the celebration coma. You get so intoxicated by finally winning that you stop watching and praying. You drop your guard. You think the war is over when really, you just won the first battle. Remember Nehemiah? When he finished rebuilding the walls of Jerusalem, did he throw a party and go to sleep? Nehemiah 7-3 tells us he set guards and kept the gates locked until the sun was high. Victory made him more vigilant, not less. But here's where it gets dangerous, chosen one. The second trap is even more subtle. It's the blessing guilt. You start feeling bad that God blessed you when others are still struggling, so you begin to sabotage your own breakthrough. You give away what God told you to steward. You apologize for your success. You dim your light to make others comfortable. Listen to me carefully. God didn't bless you to make you feel guilty. He blessed you to make you effective. Psalm 67:1-2 says, "May God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face shine on us so that your ways may be known on earth, your salvation among all nations." Your blessing is supposed to be a billboard for his goodness, not a burden you carry in shame. But the third trap, the one I'm going to reveal last, this is the trap that has destroyed more destinies than all the others combined. It's the trap that's waiting for you right now, even as I speak these words. It's so deceptive that even mature believers fall into it. So dangerous that it can steal decades from your calling. You might be thinking, but I haven't even walked through the gate yet. Why are you talking about what comes after? Because, chosen one, preparation prevents panic. The warrior who knows the enemy's strategy before the battle has already won half the war. Here's what's happening in the spiritual realm right now. The enemy is not trying to stop you from receiving your August breakthrough anymore. He's realized you're going to push through those gates no matter what. So he's shifted his strategy. He's preparing the aftermath. He's setting up tripwires for when you come out victorious. Think about this. Why do so many lottery winners end up broke? Why do so many celebrities struggle with depression? Why do so many successful people feel empty? Because nobody taught them how to carry the weight of their blessing. Nobody prepared them for the spiritual warfare that comes with increase. The Israelites crossed the Red Sea in victory, but how many of them actually made it to the promised land? Most of them died in the wilderness, not because they couldn't escape Egypt, but because they couldn't handle the journey to their destiny. I need you to understand something that could save your breakthrough. Your greatest enemy after the 17th of August won't be the devil, it will be your own unprepared mind. Your biggest threat won't be external attacks, it will be internal sabotage. Your worst enemy won't be other people's jealousy, it will be your own unworthiness. And that third trap I mentioned, the most dangerous one that destroys more chosen ones than anything else. It's the trap of thinking the blessing is about you. But before I reveal exactly what that means and how to avoid it, I need to show you something that will change how you see your entire calling. Because, chosen one, what you're about to receive in August isn't just a personal blessing, it's a generational shift. And if you're not prepared for that level of responsibility, it could crush you before you ever get to enjoy it. Are you ready to discover the one truth that separates those who keep their blessings from those who lose them within a year? Chosen one, here's what nobody tells you about breakthrough. The moment God opens the door, 3 assassins are waiting on the other side. They don't come with horns and pitchforks. They come with congratulations, comfort, and familiarity. And they've destroyed more destinies than every obvious enemy combined. You've been praying for the 15th of August through 17th without realizing that your greatest danger isn't missing the blessing, it's surviving what comes after it. Because the enemy's most lethal strategy isn't stopping your breakthrough, it's corrupting it the moment it arrives. The flattery trap. When praise replaces prayer. Picture this. You're walking down Fifth Avenue in Manhattan. A stranger approaches with a warm smile, pats you on the back, compliments your coat. You feel good, appreciated. But while his right hand is praising you, his left hand is slipping into your pocket, stealing everything valuable you own. This is flattery theft, disguised as appreciation. The moment God elevates you during these prophetic days, watch how quickly people who never noticed you suddenly become your biggest fans. They'll praise your wisdom, your anointing, your breakthrough. And here's the trap. Their words will feel so good, so validating, that you'll start feeding off their applause instead of feeding off God's presence. Flattery is spiritual junk food. It fills you up with empty calories while starving your soul of the nutrients it actually needs. When praise replaces prayer, you stop seeking God's face and start performing for man's approval. You stop being led by the Spirit and start being driven by applause. King Herod fell into this exact trap. Acts 12:21-23 tells us that when he gave a speech, the people shouted, "This is the voice of a God, not a man." And because Herod didn't reject their praise and give glory to God, an angel struck him down immediately. The praise felt good, but it killed him. If someone's praise has ever felt off, if it made you uncomfortable instead of grateful, drop A in the comments. Your spirit was warning you. Flattery always has an agenda, and it's never your elevation. The fatigue trap. When relief makes you careless, Here's the second assassin waiting for you after breakthrough, the fatigue trap. The moment you experience God's power, your human flesh will crave relief. And relief, when it becomes apathy, is deadly. Look at Elijah in 1 Kings 19. This man just called down fire from heaven. He just defeated 450 prophets of Baal in the most spectacular display of God's power in biblical history. You'd think he'd be riding high on faith, right? Wrong. The very next chapter, we find him under a broom tree begging God to let him die. "I've had enough, Lord," he said. "Take my life." From mountaintop to suicide watch in 24 hours. How does that happen? Spiritual exhaustion. The moment the adrenaline of victory wore off, Elijah crashed. And in that crash, he became vulnerable to lies he would have never believed at his peak. Jezebel sent one threat, just one, and this man, who had just witnessed the impossible, suddenly felt powerless. Here's what you need to understand. Rest is holy. Apathy is deadly. Rest is holy. Apathy is deadly. God designed you to need rest after intense spiritual warfare. But there's a difference between holy rest and spiritual negligence. Holy rest restores your strength for the next assignment. Apathy makes you forget you have an assignment at all. During the 15th of August through 17th, when God moves powerfully in your life, don't let relief turn into carelessness. Don't let the victory celebration become a spiritual vacation. The enemy is counting on your guard being down. He's waiting for you to get comfortable, to assume the battle is over. But chosen one, breakthrough isn't the end of the war. It's the beginning of a new battlefield. The familiar trap. When old chains look like old friends. And now we come to the deadliest trap of all, the familiar trap. This is where Satan shows his true genius. He doesn't try to tempt you with something new. He recycles your old weaknesses and presents them in updated packaging. Imagine a prisoner who's finally been set free after 20 years behind bars. The gates swing open, he walks into the sunlight, breathes free air for the first time in decades. But instead of walking toward his new life, he turns around, picks up the key to his old cell, and puts it in his pocket. Just in case, he tells himself. Just for security. That key becomes his destruction. Because the moment life gets difficult in the free world, he'll remember that old cell. He'll remember how predictable it was, how simple, how familiar. And one day, when freedom feels too overwhelming, he'll use that key to lock himself back up. This is what happens to God's people after breakthrough. The old addiction doesn't come back as a needle, it comes back as stress relief. The old toxic relationship doesn't return as abuse, it returns as closure. The old mindset doesn't resurface as defeat, it whispers back as being realistic. Satan is the master of rebranding. He takes the same temptation that held you captive for years, gives it a new name, a fresh coat of paint, and presents it as a mature choice. He makes bondage look like wisdom and calls slavery practical thinking. But here's what he's banking on. That you won't recognize the trap because you're not looking for chains anymore, you're looking for freedom. So when he presents you with golden handcuffs, you focus on the gold and ignore the cuffs. During these 3 prophetic days, when God is releasing you into new levels of anointing and authority, the enemy will simultaneously be recycling every old weakness that ever held you back. The pattern you broke last year will knock on your door with a new name. The relationship you ended will resurface with better promises. The fear you conquered will return dressed as caution, and you'll be tempted to entertain it because it feels so familiar, so comfortable, so much easier than the unknown territory God is calling you into. But chosen one, comfort is the enemy of calling, and familiarity is often just bondage with better marketing. The question that will determine your future isn't whether you can recognize new temptations, it's whether you can reject old ones when they're wearing new disguises. Are you ready to burn the keys to every cell you've ever escaped? Because holding on to them isn't wisdom, it's preparation for your own defeat. Chosen one, the 15th of August through 17th was your gate. But what comes next? What happens after you've said yes to heaven's invitation? What happens when the door swings open and you're standing on the threshold of your destiny? Here's what most people don't understand about divine timing. God doesn't just open doors, He prepares you to walk through them with authority, and that preparation has a sacred time frame, 40 days. Not 39, not 41. 40 days of formation that will determine whether you stumble into your calling or stride into it like the warrior you were born to be. Listen carefully. After Jesus conquered death itself, after He walked out of that tomb with resurrection power flowing through His veins, did He immediately ascend to heaven? Did He rush into His cosmic coronation? He spent 40 days preparing His disciples for what was coming. 40 days of formation. 40 days of strategic preparation before the greatest mission launch in human history. Why 40 days? Because God knows something about human transformation that we've forgotten. Real change, lasting, unshakable, world-shifting change doesn't happen overnight. It happens in the furnace of focused preparation. It happens when you stop trying to rush the process and start trusting the timeline. You see, the gate was your yes, but the 40 days? The 40 days is your becoming. Right now, some of you are thinking, I've waited long enough. I've been patient for years. Why do I need another 40 days? But that's the wrong question, beloved. The right question is, what kind of person do you need to become to carry what God is about to give you? Moses spent 40 days on Mount Sinai before he could carry the 10 Commandments. Elijah journeyed 40 days to Mount Horeb before he heard the still, small voice of God. Jesus fasted 40 days in the wilderness before launching his ministry. And Noah endured 40 days of rain before the earth was cleansed for a new beginning. Do you see the pattern? 40 isn't punishment. 40 is preparation. 40 is the sacred mathematics of transformation. But here's where it gets dangerous. Here's where most chosen ones lose their way. They treat these formation days like ordinary time. They scroll through social media. They get distracted by drama. They let the urgency fade into routine. And 6 months later, they're wondering why the door that opened in August feels so far away. Don't you dare waste these 40 days. From the 18th of August through the 26th of September, you are not in ordinary time. You are in heaven's boot camp. You are in divine formation. And there are 3 pillars, 3 non-negotiables that will determine whether you graduate ready for your assignment or whether you fumble the very blessing you fought so hard to receive. The first pillar is consecration. This isn't about perfection, it's about separation. For the next 40 days, you need to fast from everything that dulls your spiritual senses. Maybe it's social media, maybe it's toxic relationships. Maybe it's that glass of wine that's become 3 glasses every night. Maybe it's the Netflix binge that's stealing your prayer time. Whatever it is that's competing for your attention, it has to go, because you cannot serve 2 masters, and you cannot focus on heaven while you're still addicted to earth. The second pillar is connection. Every single morning for 40 days, you need to check in with heaven before you check your phone. 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. I don't care how long, I care how consistent. Because God is about to download strategies, revelations, and instructions directly into your spirit. But if you're not listening, if you're not positioned to receive, you'll miss the very guidance that could change everything. The third pillar is commission. For 40 days, you need to serve in secret. Find someone to bless who can't bless you back. Pay for a stranger's groceries. Write an encouraging note to someone who doesn't expect it. Serve in hidden ways, because God is watching how you handle small assignments before He trusts you with big ones. Chosen one, I need you to understand something that will shake you to your core. These 40 days aren't about earning God's favor. You already have that. These 40 days are about becoming someone who can handle God's favor without being destroyed by it. How many lottery winners end up bankrupt? How many people get their dream job only to lose it because they weren't ready for the responsibility? How many believers receive a prophetic word only to see it crumble because they tried to build it on a foundation they never took time to lay. If you commit to these 40 days, really commit, not half-heartedly, not when it's convenient, God will do something in you that will astound everyone who knows you. Your family will notice. Your co-workers will ask what's different. Strangers will be drawn to something they can't name but can definitely feel. But if you treat these 40 days like ordinary time, if you let them slip by without intentionality, you'll look back 6 months from now wondering why that August breakthrough feels like a distant memory instead of a launching pad. This is your crossroads, beloved. This is your choice. Will you commit to the formation, or will you forfeit the breakthrough? If you're ready to step into these 40 days with everything you've got, if you're ready to let God prepare you for what He's prepared for you, I need you to commit right now. Type "I'm in" the comments so we can stand together. Type it as your covenant with heaven. Type it as your declaration that you're done playing games with your destiny. Because, chosen one, what happens in the next 40 days will echo through the next 40 years, and eternity is watching to see what you choose. Chosen one, I need you to understand something that most believers never grasp until it's too late. The moment you stepped into your breakthrough, the moment you aligned with God's prophetic timing for the 15th of August through 17th, you painted a target on your back. You are not invisible anymore. Victory made you visible. Let me tell you what's happening in the spiritual realm right now. The enemy has been watching you circle the mountain for years, content to let you wander in circles of confusion and delay. But the instant you began moving toward your promised land, the instant you started believing God's timing over your circumstances, every demon assigned to your destruction went into emergency mode. Think about Nehemiah. For 70 years, Jerusalem's walls lay in ruins. The enemy was comfortable with that devastation. But the moment Nehemiah arrived with divine authorization to rebuild, opposition exploded from every direction. Sanballat, Tobiah, Geshem, they weren't threatened by Jerusalem's rubble. They were terrified of Jerusalem's restoration. And right now, as you stand on the threshold of the 15th of August, the enemy is deploying the same three-phase assault that nearly destroyed Nehemiah's breakthrough. Phase 1. They're going to mock your timing. You really think 3 random days in August are going to change your life? You've been waiting for decades. What makes this time different? But here's what they don't want you to remember. Nehemiah's enemies said the exact same thing. What are these feeble Jews doing? Will they restore their wall? Will they offer sacrifices? Will they finish in a day? Nehemiah 4:2. The mockery isn't coming to discourage you. It's coming to confirm you're on the right path. Phase 2. They're going to flood you with distractions. Suddenly, every crisis that has been dormant will demand your immediate attention. Your phone will ring with emergencies. Family drama will explode. Work situations will become urgent. Financial pressures will intensify. This isn't coincidence. This is spiritual warfare designed to pull your focus away from these 3 sacred days. But here's the revelation that changed everything for Nehemiah. From that day on, half of my men did the work, while the other half were equipped with spears, shields, bows, and armor. Nehemiah 4:16. He learned to build with one hand and fight with the other. Phase 3. And this is where it gets dangerous. They're going to offer you compromise. They'll invite you to come down and meet in the plain of Ono. They'll present opportunities that look like blessings, but are actually traps designed to pull you away from your divine assignment. 4 times they sent me the same message, and 4 times I answered, I am carrying on a great project and cannot go down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and go down to you? Nehemiah 6:3, -4. Your chess analogy is perfect here, chosen one. Your last move, your decision to align with God's prophetic window, just put the enemy in check. And when you put a desperate opponent in check, they don't retreat gracefully. They throw everything at the board, hoping to create enough chaos to make you forfeit the game. But God didn't bring you this far to abandon you in the final stretch. There's a single verse, one master key that unlocks supernatural protection during post-victory warfare. I'll share it with you in just a moment, but first you need to understand what you're really fighting. This isn't about your feelings getting hurt. This isn't about people misunderstanding your journey. This is about the enemy's last-ditch effort to abort what heaven has been gestating in your life for years. Look at your life right now. Has opposition increased since you started believing God for something greater? Have people who used to support you suddenly become critical? Have circumstances that were stable started shaking? That's not God changing his mind about your blessing. That's the enemy realizing his time is up. The question isn't whether the attack is coming, it's already here. The question is whether you'll recognize it for what it is and respond with Nehemiah's wisdom instead of retreat. Because here's what the enemy knows that you might not. The 15th of August, 16th and 17th aren't just breakthrough days, they're establishment days. Once you cross that threshold, once you step into what God has prepared, the enemy loses legal access to certain areas of your life forever. That's why the warfare is so intense right now. He's fighting for access he's about to lose permanently. You're not just moving into a new season, you're moving into a new realm of spiritual authority. And that terrifies every force that has been feeding off your struggle. So when the phone rings with someone else's emergency, when the bills pile up at exactly the wrong moment, when family members suddenly need you to drop everything and rescue them from situations they created, remember Nehemiah's response. I am carrying on a great project and cannot go down. Your 3 days are too important to sacrifice on the altar of other people's poor planning. But there's something else you need to know about this spiritual chess match. The enemy's desperation reveals something powerful. He can see what's coming for you in ways you can't. His panic is proof of your promotion. So let me ask you this. If the enemy is fighting this hard to keep you from 3 simple days, what do you think God has hidden behind those dates that's worth such warfare? The answer to that question, and the master key verse that will guard your breakthrough, will determine whether you emerge from the 17th of August as a victim or a victor. Chosen one, what I'm about to share with you will shatter every fear the enemy has whispered in your ear. For too long you've been walking around like a target, believing that every attack, every setback, every closed door was evidence that God had forgotten your address. But what if I told you that you've been carrying a master key this entire time, a divine weapon so powerful that hell itself trembles when you remember who you are? Listen carefully to these ancient words from Isaiah 54:17. No weapon formed against you shall prosper, and every tongue which rises against you in judgment you shall condemn. This is the heritage of the servants of the Lord. Let me paint you a picture. Right now, in the spiritual realm, there are weapons being forged in the furnaces of darkness. The enemy's blacksmiths are working overtime, crafting arrows of doubt, hammering out swords of depression, sharpening spears of rejection. But here's what will blow your mind. Every single weapon they create is defective by divine decree. God doesn't stop the weapons from being made. He doesn't prevent the arrows from being shot. But he does something far more powerful. He renders them powerless the moment they touch your life. It's like shooting rubber bullets at a titanium wall. The impact looks real, sounds real, feels real, but it cannot penetrate what God has sealed. But here's where most people miss it. This isn't just a promise, it's a positioning. You have to stay where God placed you. You can't be running around in enemy territory and expect divine protection. You can't be entertaining thoughts that contradict His word and wonder why the attacks feel so real. Think about David facing Goliath. That giant had a sword forged specifically to kill Hebrew boys. But David wasn't standing in his own strength, he was positioned in covenant. And that rock didn't just hit Goliath's forehead by accident. It was guided by the same God who said no weapon would prosper. Here's your wake-up call. Every financial attack you've survived, every health scare that didn't kill you, every relationship that tried to destroy you but couldn't, that wasn't luck. That was Isaiah 54. 17-inch action. You're not just surviving random chaos. You're walking proof that God keeps His word. But the 15th of August through 17th changes everything. These aren't just days of protection, they're days of positioning. God is moving you into a place where the enemy's weapons won't even reach. The attacks that used to wound you will bounce off like raindrops on a window. Right now, I need you to do something. I need you to declare it aloud with me. Type it, say it, seal it. No weapon formed against me shall prosper. Don't just read it, roar it. Because when you speak God's word with authority, every demon assigned to your destruction has to pack up and leave. The question is, are you ready to stop living like a victim and start walking like the weapon you were created to be? Chosen one, as we reach the end of this divine encounter, let me remind you of the most important truth you need to carry in your heart. The 15th of August, 16th, and 17th are not just dates, they are your divine reset button. These 3 days hold the power to unlock what heaven has been preparing for you, but only if you step into alignment with God's perfect timing. Remember this: you are not walking this journey alone. The same God who parted the Red Sea for Moses, who shut the lions' mouths for Daniel, who raised Jesus from the dead, that same mighty God is orchestrating every detail of your breakthrough. He hasn't forgotten your address. He hasn't overlooked your prayers. He's been setting up a divine appointment with your destiny, and these 3 days are when heaven and earth collide in your favor. I want you to know that beyond this screen, beyond these words, there is a community of believers who understand your struggle, who have walked through their own valleys, and who are ready to stand with you in prayer. You don't have to carry this burden alone anymore. Your breakthrough is not just yours, it's a testimony that will encourage thousands who feel forgotten by God. Let me ask you this: if God could speak to you face to face right now, what would you want him to know about the deepest cry of your heart? Now, let's seal this moment with prayer. I want you to imagine that I'm standing right there with you, placing my hand on your shoulder, and together we're coming before the throne of grace. Heavenly Father, I come before you on behalf of every precious soul who has watched this message. Lord, you see the tears they've cried in secret. You know the battles they've fought that no one else knows about. You understand the weight they've been carrying, the doors that have been closed, the dreams that have been delayed. But God, right here, right now, I decree and declare that their season of waiting is coming to an end. Father, bless them with supernatural peace that surpasses all understanding. Open doors that no man can shut. Release the resources they need, the relationships they've been praying for, the healing they've been believing for. Let the 15th of August, 16th, and 17th be the turning point where everything shifts in their favor. Give them the strength to trust your timing, the wisdom to recognize your voice, and the courage to step into everything you have prepared for them. Lord, cover them with your protection. Let no weapon formed against them prosper. Surround them with your favor like a shield, and let them know, beyond any shadow of doubt, that they are loved, they are chosen, and they are never alone. In Jesus' mighty name, Amen. If this message has stirred something deep in your spirit, I want to hear from you. Share in the comments what God is speaking to your heart right now. Ask your questions no matter how difficult they seem. This community is here to pray with you, to believe with you, and to celebrate when your breakthrough manifests. And if you know someone who needs to hear this word, a friend, a family member, someone who's been waiting for their season to change, please share this message with them. Your obedience to share could be the very thing that unlocks their miracle. Thank you for staying with me through this entire journey. Your faithfulness to listen shows me that you're serious about your relationship with God. If this channel has become a source of encouragement for you, I invite you to subscribe and join our family of believers who are committed to walking in their divine purpose. Remember, chosen one, your best days are not behind you. They're ahead of you, and they're closer than you think. God bless you, and I'll see you in the next message.